Hi guys, welcome to my car. I've seen so many people do their like reading videos and reading wrap-ups and stuff in their cars, and I'm like, dog, yes, I agree, that's a good idea. I'm waiting to pick up my children, so I have literally an hour. Buckle in. I thought I would do a little reading wrap-up for you guys. I meant to do this last month, but I didn't really get around to it. I have started a book journal this year, and it's pretty simple. I just put in like the photos of the book covers, and then I say what kind of genre it is, how I read it, like in what format, my star rating, and then a quick little, not a synopsis, but just kind of like a, here's something that stood out to me, and then I just put down the date that I read it. So we're just gonna flip through. I got a few pages of the books that I've read the last 2 months for January and February. I'm not gonna include any of March's, even though it's only like the 3rd, and I've already read like 3 books this month. It's a lot for me, but let's go ahead and jump in and talk about what I read. First book that I started the year out with was Twisted Love by Anna Huang. You guys, I have seen so much about this book on TikTok and whatever, and it's not Twisted Love that I keep seeing, it's Twisted Hate, which I believe is the 2nd one in the series, and I am tempted to pick it up despite the fact that I had to stop reading this book. The writing it was like the scenarios that were happening. If you've read it, okay, it is a romance. It is like brother's best friend kind of romance, and if you've read it, it gets ridiculous. Okay, to me it got ridiculous when we started talking about like the dad situation. If you've read it, there's not gonna be any spoilers in this video, but when they're like approaching him and talking to him and like discovering things, and dude says, he like steps out of the shadows and says, "Au contraire," and I'm like, oh, who says that? Who says that? What kind of a horrible fake villain? No. So yeah, and then he, you know, tells the FBI to come in, whatever. Like I said, there's really not spoilers because you don't exactly know what's going on, but no, I gave it 2 stars because it was okay. I felt like it had promise, and then it was like, brr, no, I could not continue to read it. Will I read Twisted Hate though? Maybe. Why is it getting so much hype? Why was this book getting so much hype? I guess it's just not for me, it's for other people though. And then I finally read, and I read that one on my Kindle, okay, so I don't physically own it. And then I decided to listen to an Audible book as well, because I had a lot of stuff going on there. You know, it's nice to listen on Audible, and I ended up listening through Ninth House finally. So Ninth House is a Leigh Bardugo book, and I don't know a whole lot about Leigh Bardugo. I just know that this book had like a lot of hype around it when it first came out, and I was like, yeah, for sure, I'm gonna try a little dark academia, you know what I mean? Macadamia. It's very long, which whatever, you know, but it was really long, and the audiobook was really long, and there were some points where it just felt like there was so much info being dropped on you. Like, it was very info dumpy, if you will. I did like Alex, who's like our main character, but there were like some, I feel like, unnecessary like sexual assault stuff, scenes, you know. It wasn't for me. I can 100% see why someone else would enjoy it. If you're a person who likes dark academia, then I think you would potentially enjoy this book. It was fleshed out, it was a wild ride, but it just wasn't for me. So I gave that one 3.5 stars because I took that into account, okay? That's where that extra star came from. Otherwise, if it was just me and no one else in the world and I didn't have to consider anyone's feelings or anything, that would have been like a 2-star read for me. But because I understand that it's just not my genre and I don't want to like hurt the book based on that, 3.5 stars. Oh my gosh. And then I finally read this book. I'm trying to read it through my physical TBR. It's called Talk Bookish To Me. It's by Kate Bromley. I read it like a physical book. It's a second chance romance, all right? And I took forever to get through this book. I had picked this book up a million times in the past because I was just like, I don't want to read it, but okay, whatever. I was finally like, no girl, buckle down and read it. And this is a year of buckle down and finish that damn book, or DNF it and get it out of your house, okay? This is a year of that, so stay tuned. So I was bored in the beginning, right? If you couldn't tell, I was pretty bored. And then I finally started getting into it. I'm feeling it. I'm liking it. I'm enjoying this blossoming romance. And then They have the nerve. There's cheating in this book, and I feel like, frankly, that's all I need to say. But it's not just cheating. It's like cheating, and then, you know what? Here's spoilers. Okay, spoiler alert. You can skip this if you don't want to be spoiled. Taking the cheating into account, right? So, like, they deal with cheating in the book. It's not just like somebody cheats and that's it. They're dealing with a situation of someone cheating in this book. I feel like the author makes our main character into, like, a fool. I feel like she's made a fool of in this book, and just when I was starting to get those feels, and then I started getting them again later on in the book for a different person, and then it was very unsatisfying. I gave it 2.5 stars because there were like little segments that were good, but if you don't want to deal with cheating and a dumbass decision, I would skip this book. All right, then I listened to Reckless Girls, even though I have the physical copy. I ended up listening to it. It's by Rachel Hawkins. This is like a mystery thriller kind of book, and I love listening to books like this. I find them extremely entertaining. They are my absolute jam, especially on Audible. Like, they're my favorite books to listen to on Audible, so I was ready to go, girl. And the cover is dumb pretty, so I was so excited. And I went into this thing thinking, don't ask me why, right? I went into it thinking there was going to be a lot of cannibalism in this book. I thought people were going to be cannibals, and I thought people were going to be eating people, and no. So the situation is, you know, we have our guy and our girl, right? Classic. So they're like going off, and they're basically showing these other people around this island, right? They're like, you know, they charter their boat, and then they go show them to this island, whatever. They end up staying on this island. There's some other people on the island. Cool. Everybody's got a story though, right? And people are connected in different ways, and you're like, hold on, what? And what happened? And it had promise, and then it just fizzled for me. It wasn't mysterious and thrilling. It was just people being dumb and annoying. It wasn't deeper than that, and I was waiting for it to get deeper, and it didn't get deeper. I didn't hate the book, but like, if you go into it thinking this is gonna be like this wild ride, this mystery, the thrills, no, at the end of the day, it's just people being dumb and selfish and boning each other, and that's basically it. And it's like fade to black boning, you know what I mean? It's not even fade to black. It's just like alluded to boning. I mean, they say that they boned, but whatever. You're not going into it for the boning. Let me just put it that way. Next up, I listened to In the Weeds, which is Around the World and Behind the Scenes with Anthony Bourdain. It's Tom Vitale's book, and it's like a memoir, but it's his experience as a producer on Parts Unknown, which is the CNN show that Anthony Bourdain did, right? So Anthony Bourdain's like this world-renowned chef, but he had a show called No Reservations, and he had a show called Parts Unknown, where he went to different places all over the world, and he experienced the culture and the people and the food, okay? So it wasn't never really about the food, though. If you watch his shows, it was never really about the food. It was about the people. It was about what was going on. It was about politically what was going on. Every single episode was so different, so interesting, and Anthony Bourdain, he was very interesting to me. I always really enjoyed, you know, his content, basically his contribution to the entertainment world. And so when he committed suicide a couple of years ago, Tom Vitale wrote this book, and he's kind of chronicling his life with Anthony Bourdain and filming and with the crew and yada yada. And so it's this really cool look at Anthony Bourdain's life, obviously not through his own voice, but through people around him, or someone very close to him that was around him. And it seemed like a very honest book. What do I know? I don't know Tom, and I don't know, you know, Tony. And so I don't know, but it was very entertaining. And if you like Anthony Bourdain, I think you would thoroughly enjoy listening to this book. It was super cool to like get this behind the scenes look at him, because he was obviously a very real, very flawed dude. You don't look at Anthony Bourdain and think like, now that's a great dude, that's a good guy right there. He comes across as a huge asshole, and that's okay. He seems like an asshole to the people who he can be an asshole to, but he seemed like the kind of person who really cared about people that needed someone to care about them. He really spoke up for people that needed someone to speak up for them. And I just thought that the book overall was really entertaining, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. Okay, and then I read 7 Days in June, and what was it about this book? Okay, I read it in a physical format, right? And it was good. This is what I wrote. It was good, but I never got into it, and I don't know why. I said I can definitely understand why someone would adore this book, but I was craving more romance. The writing was great, and it really was, and maybe I would rate it higher if I didn't keep waiting for more romance. And I think for sure, if I had not been waiting and waiting for like these very romantic things to happen, or these, you know, these really, how do I even say it? It was too real. Let me put it that way. This book was too real for what I was used to. It's not a bad book. I could see myself picking this book up and reading it again through new eyes and thoroughly enjoying it, but I struggled to get through it because the book was so real. I could have been reading about someone I really knew, and I think that's a testament to the author. Who is the author? Tia Williams. That's a testament to the author. Like, she did an incredible job at creating these very real characters who were going through real life stuff, and it leapt off the page, man. It's like it could have been happening right next to me, and the story was great. So it's two authors who had met like previously, and when they were much younger, and then they didn't see each other anymore because something happened, and there was some confusion there, and you know, whatever really happened, and how did we end up never seeing each other again, kind of thing. And they both became authors, and they both ended up writing series, and they were very like wildly popular authors, and then they end up reconnecting, okay? And it has to do with them being authors, it has to do with them reconnecting. It's told in two timelines, so you have the old timeline, and then you have them reconnecting, and then our heroine, she has a daughter, and she's dealing with chronic pain. Not the daughter, but the mom. She's dealing with chronic pain, and she's dealing with just real life stuff. And it's an incredible book. It really is. I didn't rate it super high because I personally didn't enjoy it, but I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't enjoy. Like I said, I think it's because I kept thinking it was going to be like this sweep me off my feet, like give me all the feels kind of romance. And there is romance, and there is love, and there is sex, and there's, you know, all those components. But it's not the way I thought I was going to get it. And so, I don't know. I think I'm going to give that book another shot later on. Next up, another memoir. This time I picked up Will, and I of course had to get the Audible version because, you know, you recognize Will Smith's voice. You recognize his you know, his cadence. You recognize him, and so who better to read this story than Will Smith himself? So I really enjoyed listening to it. It was really long. It did take you from childhood and then throughout, so it was kind of like chronological, and that was cool. It took you through parenting, through his woes with like his marriages, you know, and with Jada, and I think it was a good time. But I also think the reason I knocked off a star and I only gave it 4 stars is because it felt like he wasn't entirely human. Like, he has had wild success. He has smashed the box office, right? He will let you know in this book. He has killed it musically. He has killed it, you know, with acting. He's killed it in so many ways, okay? But that really comes across. I feel like you didn't get the human, I don't even want to say down to earth. I just felt like he was performing this entire book. That's what it felt like. And I read a lot of memoirs because I do thoroughly enjoy them. And I enjoy the ones that feel like the author or the famous person, the celebrity, whatever, they have kind of let their guard down and let you see them flaws and all. Will Smith felt like he was telling you, these are my flaws. But it was like, but I'm Will Smith, so who cares? You know what I mean? Like, it felt, I didn't get a ton from it, but it was super duper entertaining, so I highly recommend it. I really do. But at the same time, like, am I like still mulling over the words that I read in that book? No, I'm not. But it was a good time. All right, next up I read Ugly Love by our girl Coho. So this is a Colleen Hoover book, and I read this physically, and you can, I mean, I fly through Colleen Hoover books. I feel like she has a very she's got a great writing style where she'll suck you in and whoop, you'll just fly right through her book, okay? She does it every time. So far, every time. That's how she does it. And I feel like she has a formula, and you know what to expect when you go into a Colleen Hoover book. I'm going to keep reading more. I have picked up a few more since this one, and I'm going to keep giving them, you know, I'm just going to keep giving them a shot and stuff, but I gotta say that I leave her books feeling unsatisfied, okay? So Ugly Love was really good though, okay? Here's my reaction. So good. Read it in one sitting. An amazing way to spend 5 hours. Love the feels. It's sort of a dual point of view. It's co-host, so there was plenty of effed up pain involved. Had a great time reading it. True, true, true. So, dang, I don't even remember what this book was really about. Like, I remember the big tragedy at the end. It's obviously a romance, but that's Colleen Hoover for you, man. Like, there always has to be some horrible tragedy. It always, I feel like, there's always got to be some horrible thing going on. And I'm like, damn, girl, do we have to go through this? But as you saw, I really enjoyed it. It's obviously it's a love story, but it's a love story with a lot of pain and loss of lives happen in this story, and it's tough. I feel like don't read Colleen Hoover if you're a little bit sad, because it's gonna make you like a lot of bit sad. Okay, if you don't want to be super sad, but maybe you want to get a little love, then let's read a little Christina Lauren. Okay, so next up I read Christina Lauren's book, Love in Other Words. I don't know why I've been putting this off for so long. This was a second chance romance. It's F to L. Oh, friends to lovers. I was like, what are these notes I'm writing? And this says, my reaction was, this was a lovely story. Dual timeline, love the younger timeline. I really did. I love them being teenagers. And then it says, I hate what he did to her and his excuse for it, okay? That pissed me off. That made me so mad at the character, and I hated it, okay? It just, like, it completely ate me up, and to me, it was like, it was unforgivable. She also is dealing with, so our heroine is dealing with the loss of her mother when she is young, and then when she is old, she's dealing with the loss of her father, and it's like, damn, girl, I'm sorry. And so she's like in a relationship. What happens is these two meet and they like have this budding love story from when they're, you know, young, like kids basically, up into like teenage years. They finally get together basically. They're so in love. It's so fun to read about. They love reading. They talk about books a lot. Their like dialogue is so good. Christina Lauren, I feel like, always nails it with that kind of stuff. Their dialogue is so good. The banter's so good. I really enjoyed the building of the love story, and then it all ends and then you jump to the other timeline, right? And you're like, well, what the hell happened between these people? Because you don't know until much later on in the book what happened and what kind of came of that and the pain and everything that they had to work through eventually. But later on in the future, our heroine is now engaged to someone else because she hasn't seen dude from her past in forever, and she's engaged to someone else, and their relationship was very real. Let me say it that way, okay? Because she ended up being with someone who was almost kind of emotionally unavailable because he had like been previously hurt and he had like a kid and stuff. And I just think that like it was a really real look at how I could see myself in that. Let me put it that way. I am a very closed off person in a lot of ways. You might not think it from being on the internet here, but it's hard to crack into my little heart, okay? And it's because I've been burned, and I don't want to get burned no more. Let me put it that way. But it was an amazing story. It really was. It was a super fun time. I just absolutely despised what the main dude did. Like, it pissed me off. And I couldn't get over it. Boom, a whole star gone just for that. I love the whole story, but I absolutely hated the ending. I hated it. I could have gone without it. I wish it was erased from my mind. Next up, I read A Flicker in the Dark. This is by Stacey gosh darn it. This is by Stacey Willingham. It was another Audible for me, and it's a mystery thriller. Once again, like I said, that's how I like to read it. And this one says, the dad, the fiance, the disgruntled dude from the past, who done did it? I love this book. Great twists and turns. Definitely thought dad was innocent, but I didn't know why I thought that. The whole time I'm reading it, I'm like, is the dad innocent? And then of course I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on. I said, I love how it wrapped up. It was super entertaining. For sure. The whole book, I'm like, I'm guessing. And then at one part you think you're like, oh, I figured everything out. This is so dull. And then it's like, but did you? No, you didn't. I mean, maybe you did, but I didn't. Such a good book. I really, really, really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I knocked one off because It still could have been better, girl. It still could have been, it could have been better. It could have been better. It could have been a little bit better. And then I reread Atomic Habits by James Clear. I recommended it to you guys, and it was kind of in my brain. I read it 2 years ago. I reread it this year. It was a super quick reread, and it says it's still such a great book. I used a lot of his methods already, and that's true. I used a ton of his methods in kind of getting to the place that I am now, and so I still use them currently. And it says it was a great reminder not to focus on my goals, but on the daily habits I can just I can do to implement positive systems in my life. Now, that's something I have definitely been failing at, is that I did something that he tells you in the book not to do. And it's funny because 2 years ago, I thought I was like, yes, I'm killing it. I'm going to get this goal. I'm going to hit my, I'm going to hit this goal. I'm going to get this house. I'm going to blah, blah, blah. And he tells you in the book, like, not to do that. Like, don't focus. So Atomic Habits, this is an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. Tiny changes, remarkable results. Seriously, an amazing book if you are someone who feels like you need to create new habits in your life, and you probably do. I think most of us do. You need to create new habits, and you need seriously a step-by-step guide on how to do that. He makes it so easy to implement new habits into your life. And if you read it before, reread it, because I saw totally new things because I'm a different person than I was 2 years ago. And there is a part of the book where he tells you, like, you really shouldn't focus on having this like one big major goal, because I can tell you guys from experience now that I had this huge goal. I hit that goal and I was immediately let down. I just plummeted after that. I felt like, what am I supposed to do now? Well, I guess I'll just do whatever the hell I want. It was weird. It was horrible. It was a horrible feeling. And I didn't realize it until it was too late. So I'm still trying to fix my mistakes from that. But anyway, I highly recommend Atomic Habits. It's a really good book. 5 stars once again. After that, I read another physical book. This one is by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and it's called One True Loves. This is a romance. It's kind of a love triangle, and it says I wanted more romance. That's what I wanted in the book. There was love, there was grief, there was family drama, there was a realistic view of how people grow and change during adulthood. But something was missing. It was a good story overall, and I flew through this book, but there was something missing from it. Like, it felt like I got all the way there, and then I was denied. Like, I was denied the true pleasure of a good, like, romance story. This is all sounding very sexual, but you understand the feeling, I'm sure. So the situation was that we had our heroine. She got married, to this guy that she went to school with or whatever, and she had met this other person, like, during school. She worked with him, whatever, and she gets married to this guy, and they go and fly off to California, and they're living life out there. They're traveling the world. They're seeing, all kinds of things. They're living kind of how they want to live. They're just jet setting and doing stuff, and they end up getting married. And 1 year later, after the wedding, basically on their anniversary, like, he leaves and he goes on this, like, cool trip, and it's like this, once in a lifetime trip to, like, Alaska. And anyway, his plane ends up going down, or his helicopter ends up going down, and he's gone. He's lost forever. And she's dealing with the grief of losing her husband, and she ends up going home. And his body's not recovered or anything, so she ends up flying home, and she kind of starts rebuilding a life there, totally different than the one that she was living with her husband. And after a while, after getting settled, after working at her parents' bookstore and kind of taking it over, a thing that she thought she would never do, she ends up meeting the guy that she used to work with, and they kind of forge this new relationship, and they get engaged. And it's fun to see both, the both relationships, and there's a lot of grief, like I said. But anyway, all that's going on, and then guess who pops up alive? Her husband. This is like 3-4 years later. He pops up, and now he's like, hell, I want to be with you. Hello, I just went through the very traumatic thing of being lost at freaking sea and stuck on a tiny little island by myself, and everybody's dead, and I've done some nasty things in my life, and I've gone through some stuff now. I don't know about nasty, but you know what I mean? Like, he's like, I'm ready to go right back to who we were. Let's go back to California. Let's go back. Let's start over again. And she's like, actually, I kind of had this life now. And so she's torn between, like, so should she be with her husband, or should she be with this new guy? And is she technically still married? And there's, like, a lot of real life stuff in there that, I mean, this is not happening very often, but it's basically Castaway, okay? But like, when he comes back for his wife, she's like, oh, let's talk about it. Instead of like, oh, actually I already have a husband and children, so I don't know. Yeah, so it was a good book. I like how they wrapped it up. I like how they dealt with it. because there was a lot to be dealt with there. And then we have 2 more books for this month and for February, and they're both Audible, and they're both classic romances. The first one was Pride and Prejudice, and the second one was Jane Eyre. I've read Pride and Prejudice. I've watched the miniseries. I've watched all the movies. Like, I'm familiar with it, but I ended up reading it. I actually listened to the Audible because they're free on Audible. And it says it was my first classic. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to this book. It did drone on and on at times. It really did, especially when they were talking about Lydia. Ugh. Anyway, but it was bearable. I said, I do wish I had more love and romance, but it's obviously a classic for a reason. It was good. I love how classic books, like the older books, I love how they describe how people are feeling. And it's so different. If you haven't read one lately, or you know, since high school or something, I recommend checking one out, but I wouldn't recommend Pride and Prejudice. I would recommend Jane Eyre. Oh, I loved it. I'm spitting. So Jane Eyre is by Charlotte Bronte, the Bronte sisters, Emily Bronte. I'm gonna do her next, but I ended up also listening to that one on Audible, and I ended up watching the movie, and then I ended up watching the series, and oh my gosh, like, Mr. Darcy, go on with your bad self, okay, because Mr. Rochester's in the building. Like, I liked him so much more. Their relationship, so Jane Eyre is like this, she's not an orphan. I mean, I guess she kind of is, right? Because she had to go like live with her aunt, and she didn't like her. Like, her aunt was like, oh, Jane Eyre, you crusty, I don't like you, whatever. And she ends up sending her away, and she goes to this school, and she meets some people, and she just kind of grows up there. And then she goes and she puts in like this, she puts in an advertisement to get hired as like a live-in governess. So, you know, you like basically help rear the child and teach them and stuff like that. And she gets hired, and she gets hired at this place. Damn, I forgot what it's called now. Anyway, it's Mr. Rochester's place, and it's not his daughter really, but it's his ward essentially. So the girl that is being taught is his responsibility, and he ends up meeting Jane Eyre, and the dialogue of this book is chef's kiss, babe. It's so good. It is so freaking good. Okay, sorry my thing cut off, but it's such a beautiful love story. It is so cool seeing Jane Eyre, who was like this, I don't know, I mean, this book is like super old, right? But she just had a backbone, and she wasn't supposed to be like real pretty or anything. And that was kind of refreshing to see. Like, she wasn't some great beauty. She was just like this woman who had to take care of herself, and she did. Had to teach herself stuff, so she did. And now she's trying to make her way in the world, having like no family, which is a really hard thing to do. And she's like now introduced to Mr. Rochester, and just love ensues. But wait, Mr. Rochester's got a little secret, and this little secret, just the way they describe it, like the way they describe, there's a woman basically. I'm not going to spoil it if you actually do want to read it and you have no idea what happens in the book, because I had no idea what happened in the book. Maybe that's part of why I liked it so much. I knew what was going to happen in Pride and Prejudice. I had no idea what was going to happen in Jane Eyre, but I really, really, really enjoyed it. And like them having to separate because they do, and then them kind of like coming back and trying to get through like all the wreckage afterwards, like it was such a good book. If you're gonna read like one classic, let it be that one. Because I also read The Great Gatsby, but I did that in March, so we'll talk about that next month. But that's what I read the last 2 months, and that's it, y'all. So I have plenty of other books on my agenda, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. And that's it, and that's all. All right, I'll see you guys later. Bye.